Hi. Hi there.
Welcome to Cambridge Inside Out.
Judy,
Long time no see.
Right, 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
Judy Nathans.
And Robert Winters here.
Yeah.
So today's February 11th.
Yes.
You know, happy pre-Valentine's Day. Meh. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah.
So we're sort of back in the swing of things. I think today is in New Hampshire. They're
Oh
doing
yeah,
the
it's
primary.
going on as we speak.
So as much as I dislike all the presidential politics, you can't look away.
Right.
Seriously, right?
Right. It's a primary, but
Yeah.
so did the same day registration applies to the primary too? We were just talking about that, so it's an interesting subject.
I think it would have to, yeah.
Yeah.
I think,
So that'd be interesting.
I mean, and I actually, since we were just talking
Yeah.
about that, you know, I mean, I'm not opposed to same-day registration by any means.
Isn't there a bill?
There is one that's
Yeah.
been brought before the Massachusetts State
Right.
Legislature, and perhaps it will pass. My concern really about things like that is just how much of a burden does it put on day-to-day election workers,
and how
Yeah.
prepared are they to do the right
and how
thing?
pretty- yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, I know. I was just mentioning there was a person I know down in a town south of Boston where voters were basically saying, "Well, what do you mean I'm not registered?" And they kind of tried to make the case, and they basically said, oh, "Okay, well, you can fill out this provisional ballot and da 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 da."
Right.
And then they promptly passed it right through the machine scanner and recorded it, so you could never take it out. So the thing is that even if it was determined that in fact the voter was not legally registered,
Yeah.
wouldn't have mattered. The vote was already recorded.
Yeah.
So
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen.
yeah, and I don't know how widespread
Right.
any problems would seriously
People
be.
really wanting to vote, although I guess if you're trying to cheat, but how many times can you cheat? Once, twice, that's it, right? I mean, you can't keep going to different polling places. Is there any? That's interesting. Could you go to different wards? Like
Well, I try and make a practice of
'Cause they
looking
only-
carefully at the voter list.
Yeah.
And making sure I don't shave for weeks and weeks, and then come in the morning, and I vote as a guy named Billy, you know.
Okay,
and
but
then
your
I
name
shave,
has to be on the
and
list.
then, right,
So
or
you couldn't
somebody's
go to
name.
more than one, but so you have to just figure out who.
Yeah,
I
listen.
think it's a lot of work, and people just don't do that.
You know, you know, foolish as it may seem, I still sort of believe in trust.
Yeah.
And you know, and I think that elections do have an element of trust. If you go in and say, "My name is so and so, I
Right.
live over at 366
Yeah.
Broadway,"
There's a
they go,
certain-
"Thank you," and
Yeah.
they cross it out. And they might know you, they might not know you,
Right.
but the thing is you begin with a
but if you have the
notion of trust.
picture ID, like in Indiana, where the nuns were refused, even though they had been voting there for years.
Yeah.
That was in 08 or something.
Yeah.
Those things happen.
I mean, I
but,
wonder
yeah.
if we actually have any instance. I should probably ask about
Yeah.
this, where somebody
Yeah.
shows up to vote,
Uh-huh.
and then they say name and address. They go to and they go, "Well, you've already voted," and they go, "No, I haven't,"
Yeah, that would be
because somebody
interesting.
voted under your name. I don't know
Right.
if I've ever heard of that happening, but
You'd have to look at the obituaries and see who is dead that maybe
Well, I
got
think-
taken off the
I
list and then
think
go
the-
for them. That could happen.
the wise illegal voter
Oh.
would research it first to make
Right.
sure that
But it's just one vote.
because they're a person
I know.
who basically never votes. So if you must cheat,
True.
you really should do it well.
Right.
That's my
I think
advice.
I mean, seriously, I think the problems happen not at the voter to casting their ballot, but after that. Like either ballot box stuffing or incorrect. I mean, weren't there like votes that
Historically,
had been
yeah.
found in a box somewhere? I mean,
and
that to me is where the problems lie.
And that's how Lyndon Baines Johnson won his first election
What?
in Texas. And I believe some have
Proven?
argued, yeah, because it was first done to him. And then he
Oh.
learned from that.
You better
and
do
then
it back.
basically you do
Wow.
it back. So,
Whoa.
there were some reports about, I think, John F. Kennedy in 1960 winning Illinois based on some
Oh.
mysterious ballot box that showed up from some place which was like
Well-
unanimously for Kennedy.
It's funny, there's a show that was called The Good Wife, and it had a whole series of shows on ballot stuffing from the
Yeah.
Democratic Party. Just like, and also the Daily, was that Mayor Daley back then?
That's right.
The
I
Daley
will deliver
administration.
Chicago. I will
Yeah.
deliver Cook
So
County.
there's
to
a
you.
lot of corruption there. Yep.
Right. I think it's more difficult to do now. But,
True.
you know,
Well, especially if you have paper backup, but not a lot of places do.
right, but I think there are ways of cheating elections still. I just think you have to be, it's probably, even if there is any at all, it's done at a very small scale. Like
Yep.
somebody, a few people went and cheated here and there.
Yeah,
It's not
I
like you're
just-
putting in, oh, look, 1,000
Yeah.
extra ballots showed up
Right,
for
yeah.
Joe Smith.
And
right?
that has nothing to do with the individual, it's to do with some other shenanigans, so it's just
You know,
like.
it has to do with big,
yeah.
powerful political machines who are in
Exactly.
positions where they can do
Right,
it. You know,
right.
we don't
And
really
vulnerable election bodies that oftentimes they're just volunteers, or they're not paid, or every jurisdiction's different, right? I
Right.
mean, every,
There really is, and
So-
you know, there are some people who really strongly believe there ought to be absolutely uniform federal standards, hardware entering across the country.
Presidential, yeah,
You know, but the thing is, many people argue that, you know, that states should have a lot of control over what
but
kind of
not,
elections.
but
they
not on
permit.
a presidential election.
You know, I'll actually agree with you on that. is that
Because, you know,
there
the whole
should be
thing with the
uniformity.
Chads and that butterfly ballot in Florida, think
Yeah.
of what would have happened if we'd had one standard way of presenting
I
it.
agree, but
We'd have Gore, we might not have had an Iraq
You know,
War, we wouldn't have had Bush,
I
we
agree,
wouldn't have
but,
had 9/11.
but the difficulty with that though is that
Yeah.
every municipality, every
Yeah.
county, every
Yeah,
place uses
yeah.
the same machines for all elections, local elections, state elections,
So
presidential
you'd
primaries,
have to,
whatever.
you'd have to standardize the machines.
So if you're saying, well, we must have a single standard for presidential elections,
then-
chances are you're then saying we must have a single standard for all elections.
And then the machines are
Yeah.
all private vendors, it's all profit, oh
Yeah,
gosh, what a
you know,
mess.
and you know, that's a business.
Yeah.
You know, honestly, the reason why we had all these fiascos about whether there's auditable paper trails and
Yeah.
you know, they had touch screen voting in
Yeah, without any
places
paper,
without any
that's
real
bad,
record, and
that's bad.
you could
Haven't they
cheat
gotten
them.
rid of those?
Pretty much, but
Yeah.
the reason why that proliferated as madly as it did at one
Yeah.
time, not so much now, but
Yeah,
was actually because of the state of California. This I
Uh-oh.
got from an election vendor.
uh-huh,
The thing is it was such a big market.
Right.
There's so many elections and
Right. So many
so many
people.
languages,
right,
and California is the king of referenda.
true.
So the thing is that every election in California had, you know, a whole bunch of Proposition 243.
Oh, once I think they had like 3 pages. of
Right,
it,
3
yeah.
pages of them here, and the thing is
Yeah.
now you have to produce those all in 27 languages, and every city and town is different. So they said, well,
So-
we'll find a better way to do this. So
Yeah.
the touchscreen notion that you just walk up,
Yeah,
you don't have to print a bazillion ballots,
true.
but you just basically pick your language, and then it gives you your ballot
But
in
can't
your
you
language.
still have some kind of backup to that, though? Couldn't you still
You really
theoretically
should,
have some
yeah.
kind, even if it's just dots or something? I don't know.
You should
who
have
knows?
something, but you know,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying is that's the reason why touchscreen voting proliferated.
So how did
was-
it change then? Is California now
Well, you know,
producing reams of paper?
Well, yeah, and in fact,
Oh.
that's the funny thing is that once all these
Wow.
issues about potential voter fraud or lack
Yeah.
of auditable paper trails and whatever
Yeah.
happened, California, which is really what led the market,
Yeah.
and then of course once the vendors start producing machines that can do
Everybody-
that, they
right.
try and sell it to
To
everybody.
everybody else, yeah.
So other states are adopting it in the Carolinas and
Oh, yeah, yeah,
elsewhere.
yeah, yeah.
And then meanwhile, California turns around and says, we can't trust this. No more of this.
So now
So-
the trend is back.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
You know, so it is kind of a business. It's not,
Well, that, you know, in
and
some
maybe,
ways,
maybe uniform standards would help that.
maybe, and it should be a uniform, do we have such thing as a uniform federal vendor? Well,
There
I guess
are,
you have to bid on that,
you
that's
know,
not where you
we
bid
don't,
on.
we don't, but
Yeah.
what we do have is a reality that there's a very small number of vendors
That
who
actually
actually
do this.
produce this. It used to be Diebold, which
Right.
now has a different name, you know, because they also did, you
Cash
know,
registers?
ATMs and cash
ATMs, right.
registers, yeah.
Mhm.
So now that's been spun off, and I should remember the name, and I'm just forgetting it. We have, forget the name of the
Hmm. So there are
company
not that
provides
many, is
us.
what you're saying.
There's not that many, so there's sort of a uniformity simply out of scarcity.
But it
So-
should be, I mean, I guess the well, who knows, it's all corrupt, I don't know.
Right, so,
I'm not saying the elections are corrupt, because I think they're incompetent, I don't think it's necessarily corruption, I
Ye-
think it's incompetence.
you know,
more
there
than-
was a phrase, I'll paraphrase, I'm sure, and
Yeah.
say that don't ascribe to corruption what
Mhm.
can better be understood as ignorance.
Oh,
in
I
other
like
words,
that,
so-
you don't, who
so-
said that?
I did,
Well, I want that written
but
down.
I took it
That's-
from somewhere.
That's
No,
good.
the thing is, it's very easy to point a finger and say, you did this, you
Yeah.
evil
Or
so-and-so.
conspiracy, because I know I'm big on conspiracy
Yeah.
theories. Same thing. I think it's more like a
More often, it's
series
somebody
of
just
steps
didn't
that-
know what they were
Right,
doing, and
exactly.
they screwed up and whatever, so.
we give credit too much to some people. Most
I
of them
know,
are
I
pretty
know,
dumb.
I know, it's really true, yes. Anyway, speaking of elections,
Yeah.
as I've said before here.
When is our yeah, if you have not
Tomorrow
registered.
is voter
right.
registration deadline.
Can you still register online by tomorrow?
Yes,
Okay.
you can do that, you can
So you
register
hear that?
online.
You do have to,
Just
I
like
think,
the-
have a
just like
driver's
Bill-
license.
Just like Bill Galvin
Wait a
says in the
minute.
commercial.
But you have to have a driver's license or something
That's
equivalent
true.
to that.
That's true.
I don't know what equivalent is. But
Yeah.
So
But
do
I think,
register.
but the thing is, if you register,
Yeah.
then the verification of your registration may
Still
not
has
be
to-
instantaneous, so
No, but neither is the
But you
election.
better provide the
election's not
documentation.
till March
Yeah.
3rd.
early
Super
voting,
Tuesday.
February
Oh, wait,
24th
early
to
voting, right.
28th.
So you may not be able
And
to
then
early vote
primary
if you
March
register
3rd.
tomorrow.
Yeah, see
Yeah.
you at the polls.
Right, there's early voting. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I think I'll wait. I don't like
Right.
early voting. I don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's some stuff with elections. Actually, speaking of
Whoa.
elections, since you mentioned
Yeah.
right before the show, one of our elected officials, I mean, Massachusetts is known for hysterically non-competitive elections, at least Eastern Massachusetts.
They're all Democrats.
Boston area.
Right,
They are.
yeah.
They typically are.
Yeah.
The Republicans might as well just stay home and eat a sandwich. The Democrats show up. They run unopposed or
Except
opposed
for
by
recently, we had Ayanna
hamsters.
Presley.
Right. So that was a serious
Yeah,
competitive
Right,
election.
and I think those things are happening because you're going to have
There's more of
Markey
them.
with
Yeah. Oh
the
no,
Kennedy.
there is an
Yeah.
uptick. But the
Yeah.
thing is that it is so unfamiliar to
Right.
have a Democratic
Right.
candidate actually have a challenger in a
That's
primary.
right.
It's the exception, really. It's not the rule.
So what's going on?
So up in the North Cambridge area, we have Representative Hecht.
Jonathan Hecht.
Jonathan Hecht put out a email message yesterday. I got
Oh,
it
I just
saying,
heard
"I
it
just
today,
want to let
yeah.
everybody know I'm not going to be seeking re-election."
He's been there since he's at 209.
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that.
And I think actually there was a Somerville representative as well. Forgetting her name now.
Not
who
Kat,
also
not Jalen.
not Jalen.
No.
She's still running, but it was I'm so embarrassed. I forgot her name. But one of the
Long-term?
long-term
Oh.
Somerville reps
Oh.
is not running, seeking re-election as well.
Oh.
So Jonathan Hecht is not going to run for the state rep seat up in North Cambridge, but I believe Jennifer Fries, Fries, formerly associated with the Cambridge School Volunteers, is an announced candidate, I believe, for that seat.
And it has been announced? Is that part
I
of
believe so.
I see.
Well, certainly you can look it up on the Office of Campaign Political Finance.
No, but I'm just saying his decision came after he knew that he'd have a challenge?
I don't know if
You
that's
don't know
part of
that.
the logic, but
Yeah.
the thing is, there is a little bit of a history in Massachusetts when if somebody's going, yeah, I'll run it as long as nobody opposes me, but then if I got to do it, then I got to actually have a real campaign or whatever. Screw it, I'm out of here. I don't think that's necessarily what's
We
going
don't know,
on, but
right.
but once again, we may have I mean, maybe there'll be other candidates as well.
But there would be a Republican challenger too, right?
Not necessarily.
Oh,
There are a
really?
lot of districts where there's absolutely no challenger at all. I think that's a terrible reality,
Well,
especially since Massachusetts used
We
to
only have
have
two
one of the
parties.
most progressive
Yeah.
Republican parties in the country.
yeah.
There really should be.
Well, it's
all-
the old-fashioned Republican, like the Frank
We
Sargent.
always call them the bow tie
I
Republican.
voted for many of them. I voted
Yeah.
for, was it Frank, who was the other one that was,
They
that ran against King?
Ed
King.
Ed King was the Republican who
No, he was
pushed
a
the
Democrat.
caucus. Oh, that's right. And I think that's right. Yeah.
And then whoever ran against him, I voted for.
Right.
And then
Right.
Sargent, but there was
Frank
another
Sargent,
one
yeah,
too,
so-
yeah.
So anyway, there was a pretty long and pretty respectable history of
Yeah.
Republican
Yeah.
statesmen from Massachusetts.
Yankee-type Republican.
Yeah, old style Yankees.
Weld. Oh, Weld. I
And
voted
Bill
for
Weld,
Weld. Yeah.
absolutely Bill Weld.
Okay.
And it wasn't just Massachusetts. I think some other New England
We had
states were like
Romney.
that.
We actually vote a lot of Republican governors because we have an all Democratic Congress.
I think
now.
that's part of the logic,
Yeah.
but I think the
Yeah.
other truth is that the predominant party registration in Massachusetts is not registered.
It's
Or not, excuse me,
independent.
is
It's-
not affiliated.
right.
So, or
Unenrolled, independent,
Unenrolled,
right? They
yeah.
call them different things.
So,
You're right, which
yeah.
is the trend across the country, which is interesting.
Yeah,
Which is why the
so,
whole thing. Yeah.
So whenever I look and I see those unenrolled voters, I say, well, some of
Yeah.
those people would probably have been
Right.
registered Republican.
Right.
in a different era.
Right.
And they do come out when there's gubernatorial elections and
Right.
things, and they express themselves, and I mean, what did Charlie Baker win by this past year? It was ridiculous numbers.
Yeah.
You know?
I used to be unenrolled. I used to always change it back because I think I was voting for Republican governors, but then I
Yeah.
just have stayed Democrat.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Anyway,
That's for
So,
primaries because you don't have to declare
my
yourself.
my personal feeling is that a lot of political systems in this country are really broken. And that goes especially for presidential nominating mechanisms. I've pointed
Oh,
out
the
many
caucus,
times.
yeah.
Caucuses are ridiculous.
Absolutely.
But I've pointed out to many people in 2016 there were 17 people in the Republican clown car running to be
Right.
president.
Yeah.
The person with the highest unfavorability ratings was Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He ended up as a nominee.
Okay, so there go
So,
the polls.
so if you had some kind of more of an approval voting mechanism, or ranked choice voting, or God forbid, please don't do winner take all elections anymore, where all you've got to do is be the guy who can, or gal who can get 21% of the vote with everybody else getting 14%.
Well, isn't that what's going to
Suddenly you get
happen now with
you
the
get a-
Democrats too?
No,
There's
Democrats
not going to be
don't-
ranked choice.
They
the
do have, I think,
primaries?
4 states that actually chose to do ranked choice voting.
not
in the States,
Massachusetts.
not Massachusetts.
Well, there you go. That's going to be
Right.
a problem.
Right. So the thing is that but we still allocate to people. I think it's a 15% threshold. So if as
Oh.
long as you get a certain percentage,
stay
or maybe
in.
I think it's 15. It could be your top
No, I think
top X
yeah.
number of candidates,
Yeah.
and then they allocate the delegates accordingly. So in Massachusetts, it's not like one person's going to walk off with the prize, like
Right.
happened with Republican
True.
primaries.
Yeah.
Right. But the thing is, it's a hell of a way to run a railroad. It really
Yeah.
is. And when you're electing the most powerful person on earth,
Yeah.
through a flawed mechanism,
Yeah.
it's really depressing. But that's the way it is.
Do you think
know?
he would not have come out as the candidate, Trump, if that had been?
If there had been a mechanism where there was,
Really?
which actually sought to intervene so that you didn't have vote splitting, I mean, I say it kind of very matter of factly.
Or no, winner take all, because a
Yeah.
lot of those primaries are winner take
I mean,
all. They
I don't
weren't-
pull punches about any of this stuff. When
Yeah.
when I said when the first primaries are happening in the Republican primaries in 2016, I said I don't know anything really about where any of these candidates stand on anything because I don't really pay much attention to them. But I'm going to tell you who the 3 top finishers are going to be. It's going to be the black guy, the woman, and the TV guy.
Why did you say that?
Because there was one black candidate among 17 who was guaranteed to get a certain percentage of votes just by identity. There was
In the
one-
Republican Party?
In the Republican Party. Carson.
Yeah, but he was an idiot. Oh,
It didn't matter. The thing
right.
is that he was guaranteed to get at least some fraction, maybe
Who about Jeb
15%.
Bush?
He
was,
but,
like,
but the
supposed
thing
to
is
be
he's the problem. Then he becomes just another white guy and a bunch of white guys. So they spread those votes around. And
Yeah,
it
but you're
actually
making it like
does
the
harm.
Republicans were very concerned about diversity.
They weren't. They weren't.
I know, that's why.
Right, which is what's so bizarre and
They
upside
were the
down.
first to go, was Carson and Farina,
Oh,
weren't they?
it's true because once you actually do well in early primaries, you're either going to take off because people start hopping on a bandwagon, or people are going to start assaulting you to drive you into the dust.
She actually lasted longer than, I don't know, there was Rick Perry, Rubio, there was Bush, like, he got out really quickly.
Yeah,
I forget who else was in there.
right. But
Wow.
but we are all in agreement that the best man got the nomination, aren't we? So, but anyway, the point is it's a bit of a busted system, and if you think it's only busted nationally, as everybody says, you should vote and you should participate, and elections are important, whatever. But they're only as good as the mechanisms that are associated with them. In Cambridge, we use ranked choice voting for municipal elections that seeks to achieve certain ends.
And there's also
You know?
bills to try to make ranked choice on the state, right?
Yes, there are.
Yeah.
There are.
So there's some good things happening on
And
the state
hopefully
level.
there will be provisions that will
Yeah.
allow simple modifications even to our systems to sort of
Right.
make them so they're less prone toward recounts for the wrong reasons.
Oh.
Like in other words, that you wouldn't seek a recount simply for another roll of the dice, right?
Uh-huh.
So anyway, I'm hopeful that we will be moving in better directions. I believe I know they have a sufficient number of signatures, and the ranked choice voting initiative petitions will be on the ballot next year.
binding or non-binding?
Actually, by next year, I mean this year, right?
Non-binding or
I
binding?
believe it's binding.
Oh, good,
And I believe it will win.
good.
You know, and
Yeah, I think they have a lot of
and,
support.
I think, I think some of the people who are running that campaign are really good at running campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it bugs me sometimes when I ask them questions to say, well, what does the provisions here call for, and they don't have answers. Arrgh. But they're really good at organizing big mass movement type campaigns and mobilization of voters. And so I'm pretty sure this will sell well. And
Hopefully.
the idea is actually selling on Main Street in a lot of places around the country.
It's not like
You know.
asking people, do they have the right to die, because that failed, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I voted for it, but.
yeah, I mean, if you, as long as you don't
Not that
sell ranked
touchy.
choice voting by basically saying, well, we should be doing elections the way we used to do it with paper ballots in Cambridge, and it'd only take a week to get the results. That would not have been a
No.
great way to sell ranked
No.
choice voting, and that's
No.
really one of the initial reasons why we chose to seek computerization of the elections, because I was
Right.
part of the people who were seeking
But
that.
how many municipalities, though, have the equipment that we have to do ranked choice voting?
We didn't actually.
I know, but
in-
we also invested in that. Some of these communities don't have those kind of resources. They may not want that.
The way it worked
I don't know.
that's true. And the thing is, the way ranked choice voting implementation typically works in a lot of states in the country, and states vary by, what
How
does
they-
it take to be certified? So can you
Oh,
use this
true.
machine? What's legal? What's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
legal?
yeah.
You can't just sort of say, well, we've decided to adopt ranked choice voting, and we don't have any machinery for it, so what the hell?
So you have to have
we'll just
the equipment to be able to do that?
yeah, so what people in some places like San Francisco and Minneapolis actually did was they actually put a provision into the law that says that you'll be able to rank X number of candidates up to the limitations of the voting hardware.
Ah,
So Sequoia machines, you could only vote, I believe, up to 3 rankings. So I think
Oh,
that's the way
I
it was set
see.
up in San Francisco.
huh.
Well,
Well, it's better than nothing.
It's
I
better than
guess.
nothing.
Yeah.
It's true. But now
And most people aren't gonna probably be on their first choice, second, third anyway, right?
I think there is a necessary voter education campaign about encouraging people to vote deeper, because
Right.
otherwise there will be candidates say, you better not give anybody else a vote because you don't want to
Yeah.
hurt Jimmy.
True.
You
But
know,
not all
there's a lot of
municipalities
fictions.
have what we have. We have so many, and
Yeah.
we have a different kind of
We do have a
presentation,
different,
so
yeah.
it's different.
But the thing is, when we implemented computerized elections in Cambridge, starting with the 1996, actually we did a primary before that with the same machinery, but we use AccuVote scanners, and what happened then, and what they call mark sense ballots, basically like an SAT. And what happened back then was that the machinery actually isn't designed for ranked choice voting. It's basically it basically looks at these things, counts the number of these totals, and it keeps a running total.
Ah,
So we had to have software, firmware, especially made for the machines to adapt them so that they could, what we used to say was record whole ballot images, which does not mean pictures. It just means record all the rankings and just record them, so they're not actually totally anything.
right.
So
Just-
all they're doing is saying, this person voted for blah, 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 blah,
I
blah,
see.
blah. This person voted for blah, 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 blah. And
then what do you do with
and then
that
you end
information?
up with a big fat text file
Yeah.
ultimately after you run it through the processor.
Wow.
And then that's what we feed into the tabulation software to actually run the
Oh
elections.
my goodness.
The machines had only a relatively small amount of memory, 128 kilobytes. Pardon me if I'm getting technical here, but it only had a limited amount of memory because it never needed an amount of memory if all it was doing was adding one
Right.
and getting totals every time.
Right. So now it
had-
needed more
had-
memory.
It had acres of additional memory it never needed then, but when you started recording
Yeah.
whole ballots, we actually blew out the memory cards
Was
in
that
some
the-
elections.
Well, didn't we do that in the last one?
Not the most recent
no,
ones.
the one before
but,
that.
no,
17?
that
Oh, that was a
that was
different issue?
that was a failure of the
An
old
old chip.
20-plus-year-old cards
Okay.
that just were no longer working.
I see.
They have little batteries on board, and they just failed.
Okay. All right.
But the thing is, in one of the earliest implementations, there were 2 of the biggest precincts where we actually filled up the memory and it zeroed out. So then they had to rescan everything with using multiple machines.
Speaking of machines.
The new machines are great. They're wonderful. They do, but they were the original ones were never designed for ranked choice balloting elections. New machines, I think, are the vendors, if they're smart, they are getting them ready so that they are capable. Because
Of
if a
doing
lot of
this.
people start, if a lot of
Yeah.
municipalities start adopting, and whole states start adopting ranked choice voting,
Mm-hmm.
and then all you're selling is machines that can't handle it, then you lose your
You-
customers.
Right, so you better get on
So
board.
if you're not making them ranked choice
They
voting
better have good
capable,
marketing people in their
yeah,
companies.
it's really true.
Speaking
yeah.
of machines and memory and all that, do you know anything about, she was cut off, but the public commenter on the artificial intelligence, and it's like a manifesto about it. Did you see that?
You know, actually, I think I read a little bit of that.
I started reading it, I said, wait a minute, it's going on
This
and
is
on
city
and on.
council meeting last night, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the issue was that
It
was
was about
addressing.
cyber security, but AI, but it was
Yeah.
written in a way, I have to say, I've seen this.
I
certain
took a
kinds of
glance at this
mental-
missive that was in there, and I said, "My God, this is like somebody wrote a
And
book."
she immediately, well, it wasn't on the agenda, so Sumbul was immediately
Yeah.
kind of cut it off, but, so then I went to look at oh, you can't talk on communications,
That was
that's
the
what it
problem.
was.
That's the problem.
And it was
yeah.
her communication.
Yeah, so it actually was in the
But it was
in
all
the materials.
handwritten
Yep,
and went like.
and it went on forever. Yeah.
Anyway, I just.
I don't know.
that
You know,
was,
I looked at it and said, "Well, this looks interesting," and I said,
No,
"No
you
time,
can-
too busy,
I've
can't do it."
seen things written by people that had some kind of, I won't go further than that. It's, I was saying actually.
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah. Yeah.
So,
So anyway, plenty of things happen. We'll
Yeah.
certainly talk about over the next hour. But one thing maybe we
Yeah.
could just say kind of quickly is that, to nobody's surprise, the tree protection
oh, yeah,
ordinance.
got extended.
Really, we shouldn't call it. We should really call it the current
It's a
moratorium on tree
moratorium,
cutting,
yeah.
which was set to expire within a month. Is
In March, right.
Yeah, they extended that
To the
the end of the year, or until they come up with the final version.
Well, they're
of the
still
tree
made with the
protection
urban
ordinance.
master task force.
Yeah, so
kind of
there's
stuff,
these
yeah.
recommendations from the Urban Forest Master
Yeah.
Plan. That's where
I
it's
haven't read it, you?
And
No,
I
haven't.
no, I haven't read it either. But
Hmm.
I hope springs eternal. That
Yeah,
yeah. So
kind of
there's these
stuff, yeah.
recommendations from the Urban Forest Master
Yeah.
Plan. That's where
I
it's
haven't read it, you?
And
No,
I
haven't.
no, I haven't read it either. But
Hmm.
I hope springs eternal that in fact they will hash out something that allows enough flexibility for reasonable people.
Right, like old Peter Cohn, I think that's his name,
Yeah.
who gave public comment, was
Yeah, I
on
mean,
his
just
issues
for
around
if
that.
you're a
Yeah.
long-time property owner,
Yeah.
especially if it's the trees you planted and took
Right,
care of.
and you're going to replace maybe
you
a tree
replace them,
with
but-
4 trees, and it's your
Yeah,
property, and you
you've
wanna
made
do
the decision
solar,
that you
yeah.
want to do it a certain way. So
Right.
you shouldn't have to basically have
Right.
the city just sort of say, "I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah,
we're in
yeah.
control of your property."
Right,
Property owners do deserve at least some control of
Yeah.
their own properties, for
Yeah.
goodness sake.
All
So
right.
hopefully they can work that out. We'll see
Yeah.
soon. So.
okay, we'll see you in the next segment.